Hey everyone, welcome back to Kalay Plants. Me again, Mark. Today is a cloudy morning, so I figured that it'd be nice to record something today. And just as I've told you in our last vlog, if you haven't watched that, please make sure to check it out on the channel. I told you that we will be looking at some of the string plants that I have here because they have done really well. And they have grown so much over the past few months that I have been caring for them. So I actually have them here. One of them is right over there. So yeah, I hope that my headset will help me reach that. Okay, I hope that our setup here doesn't fall. And also we have some of our cacti to talk about. Okay, because someone actually requested for a care tip, for a care guide for this plant. So I think I'm just gonna be combining the two different types of plants in this one video. Okay, so let me just grab that one so that yeah. Okay, so now let's just look at the plants that we have here. And the first one that I want to show you is this string of pearls. Okay, you can see this one is kind of bare looking right now. And yeah, I've had this for a while, and as I said in our last video, it used to be planted in a very pumice heavy potting mix, so it hadn't grown a lot. But if you actually look at this plant, and if you like just imagine okay, that it was planted in this pot, then you would think that this would be a lot already, because it used to be in this pot, but then I replanted it in this large container. And also I changed the potting mix so that we will see more growth on that, so that it can grow a little more. SENECIOS string plants actually take some time before they can like push on growth, but once you establish them, once they have like settled on their potting mix, they will just explode in growth very quickly. And once they grow, actually you will often have a lot of them right away very quickly. And some other growers are actually saying that string plants, once you manage to know how to grow them, they're actually like weeds. When they grow a lot. Now the string of pearls, okay, this is the most basic one that you can find. Okay, they have these round leaves that are very fat, okay, and they look kind of like beads or like beans, okay, on their growth. And then they grow on these really delicate thin stems. Okay, if you manage to like get rot on them, which is hardly a case, very rarely you will get rot on them. You will only get rot on them if like you put them in a very dark area and you don't give them sun. You will get rot on them. So those stems will break off, and the leaves one by one, they will start drying out or rotting, and then they will die. And that's what happens as well if you give them too much sun, and if you don't water them, they will dry up on those stems, and then they will start breaking apart, and then they will start dying. Okay, because sometimes one stem will not have roots and the other stem has some roots. So if they break off and if they die out, then you will see that your plant will just shrink and then will just die. So I would recommend that you give this like ample lighting, and also don't put it in a very dark location. But I would also say that this can tolerate a little bit of partial sun, which is like about 5 to 6 hours of direct sun, and then it can be shaded during the afternoon. You don't have to give this as much sun as you would give with your rosette type of succulents, because they really don't like to be in scorching hot sun. So you can just give them half day of sun, morning sun. Okay, so now let's just look at the other one, and then we'll go on with more tips. And the next one that I want to show you is this string of tears. Okay, someone actually commented on my videos a long time ago that the string of tears is just the same as the string of pearls. Okay, but you can see here on the leaves on this one, they have a little bit of pointed shape to them compared to our string of pearls. So yeah, that's why I keep calling this one string of tears. So I think that is kind of different, but the stems are the same. And there is another string plant that has much more tear shaped and much more bluer color, but that is a very different type of SENECIO. This is not that one. Okay, so this is the string of tears, and I think that yeah, it's kind of related still to our string of pearls. If you look at them really side by side, okay, you would tell that the tears has some pointedness to them, and the pearls are just round. Okay, they have a little bit of point, but not as prominent as the points on this one. Okay, which is why I call this one string of tears. Okay, but maybe this one will develop those points as well, those pointed shape, if I manage to water it more, probably. Okay, so yeah, but they're kind of different from me, and this is what I've been, just put this down. Okay, and this is what I've been telling you of how fast they can grow, because this one really surprised me with its growth. I think I planted this a few months back and it managed to grow a lot, and you can see that it started hanging as well. I even didn't like put some hanging tendrils on this one. I just plopped them all inside, and then they started coming out like that. And also, once you manage to give them just the right amount of sunlight and they don't etiolate too much, you can see there at the center that the leaves start becoming larger. Okay, they start growing bigger, and the stems, the very delicate thin stems, will also start getting thicker. Okay, so that's what I noticed with this one. And I believe that when we were in the highlands, I believe that I found some of these like getting really thick stems, so they can get much more bigger than this one. And the propagators who sell them just sell them like as this small type. Okay, but once you manage to establish them and grow them, the leaves will get larger and the stems will also get thicker. So that's what I really like about this plant. Once you manage to establish them, they will be much more tougher. With those thicker stems, they will not be a problem with you anymore. They can tolerate a lot more sun and a little bit more of watering. But I would recommend still that you wait for the potting mix to dry out before you water this plant. Now when it comes to watering, I will say that this one is much more thirsty compared to your other succulents. Okay, you would know that they are thirsty if their leaves are kind of shrinking. Okay, and if you also potted them up in a very pumice heavy potting mix, so their leaves will tend to shrink and they will not fatten up and they will not grow large. Okay, but if you planted them in a good potting mix with enough organic materials, their leaves will plump back up, they will become shiny, and then they will continue growing. If they are fully established, you don't have to wait for the leaves to completely become wilted before you water them. That will take a very long time. So you just have to wait until the potting mix is dry and then you can water them. As long as you make sure that you have watered it for like after 5 days or after 6 days, as long as you haven't watered them very recently and you check the potting mix is really dry, so you can water them back up. The roots on this plant, I would say, could also get very deep. Okay, they can get very deep roots. Okay, sometimes I saw this plant when it was planted in salt potting mix. It didn't have a lot of roots at the top, but then suddenly at the bottom it actually had a lot of roots. So that's what you can expect with this plant. They can get deep roots and they can establish themselves into their potting mix once you consistently care for them. So you just have to lay them on the soil. And yeah, I would recommend, if you're planting them up, okay, if you have them like on this size and then you're planting them up, I would recommend that you bury some of the stems into the potting mix. Okay, you'll plop them on the potting mix and then you sprinkle a little bit of potting mix on top of them. Okay, that's what I learned from Mr. Chuck's channel, from Service Cafe's channel. He sprinkles a little bit of potting mix on top of his tendril succulents or string succulents, so that they can establish themselves there, and yeah, so that they wouldn't dry out. And sometimes if you plant them up, the roots will be like coming out because the roots are kind of flat. So if you plant them up, you might have a difficult time like burying the roots and keeping the stems above the soil. So if the root is exposed, you can just sprinkle more potting mix on them and it will settle once you water the plant, and then the roots will be under the potting mix. So that's what I would recommend when planting them. Okay, on to the next, and this is the string of bananas, okay, or string of watermelon. Okay, they sold this to me as string of watermelon, but yeah, the leaves don't look like watermelon. Yeah, this is not a string of banana, I'm sure, because you can see here the leaves are stripy. Okay, they have some stripe. If can see that. You can probably see it. Okay, they have some stripe that the other SENECIOS doesn't have, so it's kinda looks like a watermelon. Okay, or if you think about it, kinda looks like a very long shaped melon or something like a cucumber because of the way that it looks. But I think that this one is supposed to have much more rounder leaves, because I believe I've seen string of melons somewhere else that also have much more rounder leaves, but mine just developed these long narrow leaves that are pointed. And what I really like about this plant, and it also had managed to grow a lot, this one has much more thicker stems, okay, than your others as SENECIO. You can see here, this is the new growth and the stems are already quite thick, so that's what you can expect them. And they also have much more bigger roots. You can see there, okay, those are the roots. Okay, yep, and this is another root right here, so that is a very large root, and you can actually cut off those stems and then plant them up and they will establish. Okay, so yeah, and this one used to be like two straight strings, and when I first planted them, and now it has managed to like produce a lot of these heads, okay, a lot of these growing points. So it managed to branch out really nicely, and you won't get the lush look on them just like you would with your string of pearls, because this one can get really lush looking. They will look kind of like they're all over the place because they have thicker stems. And yeah, you can manage to make them more lush if you cut off the tips. Like if you cut it off right here at the tips, it will branch out and it will look much more lush. But mine, I just let it grow, and I think I've already cut off this plant before, which is why it had branched out like that. Okay, so you can cut off the tips. And I think I also, okay, if you are a viewer who bought succulents from me, okay, you might probably have one of these plants, okay, because I think I sold or I gave away one of my string plants before, one or two of my string of melons before, and they're really nice. Okay, they grow a lot. Just as I told you before, once you manage to establish them, they will tend to grow very quickly. And yeah, and for the shrinking part, okay, if you don't water them up, you can see on this one, it has some like the leaves are folding inwards, so that means that the plant is thirsty. Okay, so that's how you can tell. And compared with the other ones as well, this one has a little bit of farina to it. It can get kind of bluish once you look at it up close. Kind of resembles like the leaves of an onion. If you've seen an onion growing, that's what it looks like. And yeah, I think that's about it all on all the features of this plant. This one is much more resilient, I would say, compared with your other string type succulents. You can probably leave this dry out for a bit longer than you would the others because they will shrink up. This one, I don't have any problems with this shrinking, and also I don't have any problems with it in any way burning, probably a little bit. Okay, you can see some deformed leaves growing right here. Okay, so yeah, probably because of sunburn or dehydration. Okay, but overall the plant itself is just a very fast growing and very resilient type of succulent. You don't have to worry about them too much, just as long as you have planted them in the right potting mix. And as I said before, I use a very organic heavy. I have some leftover potting mix right here. Okay, so this tray, I've been planting a few of my plants recently. So in this tray, I have some of the potting mix. So this is alnus compost and then pumice, and I just mix them up together. You can also try adding perlite on them, so it will be lighter. It will not be too heavy. But all of my SENECIOS right now actually don't have any perlite on them, so they can grow well just with these two ingredients. I would just recommend that if you're going to be planting those SENECIO, especially those thin leaf varieties, that you add a lot more organic materials than you would add pumice. Okay, don't add too much pumice on them. Okay, probably just like 40% pumice and 60% organic materials, because they really don't like to grow in pure rock or in pure or inorganic materials. They won't have anything to attach to, because the pumice itself, the roots don't attach to them. The roots attach to the organic materials. So I would recommend you add more organic materials, and if you're going to be sprinkling on top of them use organic materials to sprinkle to cover up their stems, because that's how they will root, with the organic materials. Okay, on to the final one, we have this Senecio peregrinus. Okay, this is string of dolphins. You can see here. Okay, those little dolphin-shaped leaves, really nice. Okay, once you give them like less sun, they will open up like this. Okay, I think this developed when I placed this pot in a very shady area. Okay, but as I moved it to more sun and as it grew, okay, we have these dolphin-shaped leaves. Okay, you can see there. Okay, I'm using my face so that you can see it more. Okay, they look like they're little dolphins that are jumping out like that. Okay, and they're really adorable, really nice. And also this one manages to grow very quickly as well. Okay, I think what I did with this one is, this used to be in an old pot, and then it was getting kind of straggly, getting kind of etiolated, and I didn't like the look of it. So I planted them up in this pot, and then I just twirled around the stem inside, and then I added some more organic materials on top of it. And after burying those stems, it just managed to shoot up these new stems, these new branches. Okay, really nice, and I kind of like the look of them right now. And I'm intending to repot this into this type of container. Okay, but we're running out of space really, because this one and the other Senecio that I have, they're hanging on that part of the greenhouse, so they already took up the space, and I don't have any space for this one anymore if I pot it up in a hanging pot. So what I intend to do is add some more hanging racks on these sides. Okay, or probably some chicken wire. I will put up a chicken wire, have a chicken wire welded into the side of the greenhouse so that we can hang more succulents. Okay, and this one I will be repotting it soon, and we will see more growth on that soon. Okay, and when it comes to propagating these, okay, they have some slightly thicker stems. Okay, so you can also cut off those stems, and then you can plop it onto the soil, and then just make sure you add organic materials on it so that it can establish. I have tried propagating this before, and the stems that I planted, they just shrunken up, they just dried up because they didn't have a lot of organic materials in their potting mix. Okay, so yeah, I would recommend that you just cut it up. If you can like manage, you can put up like the stem, okay, back onto the soil like that. Okay, this just has a Fred hives on top of it. Okay, if you put it up onto the soil and if you just water, the stems that you put on the soil will root up into the soil, and then you can cut off the stem with the new roots and the soil, and then you can place it in a different container. So I would recommend that. That is one way you can make sure that your propagates already have roots before you separate them. Okay, so that's what I would recommend on this one. When it comes to pest problems, I didn't have any pests on these plants. Okay, they are some of the more resilient ones. They don't attract mealybugs. Even if you see, they have already produced a lot of flower stalks, and yet I don't see any mealybugs on them. Though if you might get it, okay, you can try using Starkle G, sprinkling it on top of their soil, or you can just try washing the mealybugs away. If you have a hose that has some pressure to it, you can water them on top of the soil, and then you can dislodge the mealybugs so that they don't attach to the plant anymore and they will be gone. Okay, but what I do with watering this one, I also bottom water them most of the time, and I don't see any mealybugs on them really. You don't see mealybugs on them right now. So you just have to clean up their like dried up flower stalks. This is what it looks like. Okay, let me just grab one. Okay, that's what it looks like. Okay, that one. This is a flower stalk that has dried up. Okay, this is a flower. Okay, so yeah, you might just want to like cut it off because they look kind of ugly. Yeah, once they have those dried up stems, but the flowers are fragrant if you like sniff them up close. But if from afar, you don't necessarily smell the flowers because they're very tiny, they're very small. Let me just repeat that these type of succulents are not indoor plants. Okay, you can probably have success growing them indoors, but they will usually not do very well. They will not grow a lot. So I would recommend you put them out, okay, probably in a balcony, in a terrace, where they can get a lot of sunlight and where they can grow more. If you put them in a very shaded location, you will not have a lot of leaves, and the stems will be very, very long, and the leaves will be far in between. So that is etiolation on these plants. You will not get this lush look if you plant them up indoors. So yeah, they're getting kind of noisy, and I told them to like stay quiet. It's still very early in the morning, by the way. So yeah, it's not nice to walk around very noisily in this area. Okay, we're living in the province. So now let's just move on to our Monkey Tail Cactus. And this one, you can see here, has really, really nice, like very fluffy type of growth. You wouldn't want to rub it the other way, because if you put your fingers up, you can get pricked. There are some stiff thorns on this one, so if you want to touch it, you just touch them downwards like this, or if it's not your plant, don't touch it, okay? And then we have this tip, okay? This is the growing point. And this one I find is a very resilient type of cactus, okay? It's not one that will shrink if you neglect it too much. I actually have the other one outside and it didn't shrink. What I would say the problem with this one is if you plant it in a very shaded location that doesn't get full sun, the new growth on it will get much more thinner. It will not be a very thick bodied cacti, okay? It will get much more thin stems. For this one, I think the stem is kind of big on this side, and then it gets a little bit narrow on it, but I still kind of like the look of it. It doesn't look very narrow to me, okay? But I think you can probably get much more thicker stems on this one, and I think, yeah, I think it's kind of nice right here in this position, okay? I would say that it's not a very tough plant to care for, okay? So with this one, this is grafted, okay? But I have another one that is not grafted, and you can tell, or you can water this plant if the potting mix is thoroughly dry, and you don't have to worry about it really. It can take a very long time before it needs watering, so it's not a very sensitive one. Now if you're buying this Monkey Tail Cactus, I would recommend you get the white monkey tail. I have the golden one. There are actually two varieties of them, and this is the golden variety. I think they are the same, in the same genus, okay? But this one is not that fuzzy, okay, and not that grand looking compared to this one, okay? So this is the white, and then this is the golden, okay? The white one can resemble this one if it's still young. If it's still small, it can get much more shorter spines, because they don't develop long spines right away. So they will look like kind of like this, but you just have to look very closely. You just have to notice their differences. This one has short spines. The spines on this one doesn't get long, okay? And this looks like a peanut cactus actually, just a little bit golden. And this one has white spines that will get longer like this, okay? So if you're looking for this plant, if you're in the Philippines, look for the white monkey tail cactus, not the golden one, okay? Yeah, and I think that's about it. You just have to give it a lot of sunlight and then continuously water them so that they can grow, okay? But you might want to wait until the potting mix is dry. With the pests, I don't have any problems with this with pests, and with fertilization, you don't have to fertilize them. Cacti are very resilient to that. If you have organic materials in their potting mix, you won't need to fertilize them. But if you want to, you can probably fertilize them, but not in the rainy season, because they will etiolate, okay? They will get longer, narrower, thinner stems. If you over fertilize them, they will overgrow, and if you don't have a lot of sunlight, you will not see thicker stems on them, okay? When it comes to flowering, I've shown you a flower before, okay? I've shared some pictures of the flowers on this one. They produce these really nice pink flowers. I think it's budding up right now, okay? And sometimes they will like crown the plant around with flowers, and that's really nice. But yeah, I don't see any, I'm not sure I'm doing anything right, or any strategy for them to flower. They just flower on their own, so you just have to be patient with them, okay? But I think that this one doesn't have any problems with flowering. You can just let it grow and it will flower when it wants to. Okay, so yeah, I think that's about it for this monkey tail. Now you can propagate it also by grafting it into this Monkeytail Cactus, okay, or you can cut off the stems and then you can plop it into a soil once the cut off part is dry, and then it will root up on its own, though I think that this one will take longer before it can root. And if you cut off the stem right here, or if you cut off the growing point, this plant will just branch out. Okay, so I've toured Sir Dan Saclangan's greenhouse in the highlands, and his Monkeytail Cactus are just branching out all over the place, and you can get like a very large hanging pot and then let them grow downwards, okay, because that's their true growing habit. But you will need to have a very large pot to support them because they get kind of heavy. Actually, I'm getting kind of tired putting this up, holding this up right now. So yeah, I think that's about it for our video. I hope you like the plants that I showed you today because they really like give me a lot of joy. These past few weeks, past few months, when it's really dry here in my place, we also have troubles with our water, and it's not raining and it's very hot. But this one has managed to survive really well here in my area, and I just know that you will get success with them as well. Okay, even if you're in the lowlands, they're not very particular with their like heat requirements. They don't bother themselves with a lot of heat. If you manage to get like morning sun to them, they will just continuously grow. Okay, so I think that's about it for our hanging plants for this video. If you have any requests with plants that you want me to make a video about, please make sure to comment it down below, and please make sure to hit the like so that our videos can reach a wider audience, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I think that's about it for this video. I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.